my music.
Ready? Want to do an intro for the show? 3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the TTT podcast. We talked about junk volume, and we are here with Maxwell L. Hodge and Kyle Ruth to give you that awesome update.
This
Podcast. What's it called?
The Corpus Animus.
Oh, come on. It's TTT. It's the same thing.
If you're on the go and you want to listen to just the audio version, subscribe to the Corpus Animus podcast on your favorite podcast app. Get better at the sport of CrossFit alongside some of the best athletes in the world in our online training program, The Design. Head over to our website, trainingthinktank.com/DSGN to learn more.
All right, for the first time in the history of the Corpus Animus podcast, we've got Travis Mayer here to talk with us a little bit today. We're going to be...
Can I push the button? That
Oh, yeah,
makes
we
the
should
crowd
have
go
one.
loud?
Yeah, we should.
Yes.
Travis,
Which one?
The fan button. We got Travis Mayer with us.
That's the loudest applause he's ever gotten.
So we're going to be talking
It's
about...
usually like this. And my mom. Go,
I feel
Travis!
Travis, I feel like having you on the podcast is probably going to detract from the quality of the podcast. However,
Kyle did say we're not allowed to talk shit to one another too much. Or he's
But
going
we
to
can.
or I'm going to walk out.
Yeah.
'Cause
But
I
what
don't-
if it's about you?
That's fine. You can talk all the shit about me.
Just not about each other.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
bickering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
It's a dad thing. That's all I can say. So today we're going to be talking about junk volume. We're going to be talking about people who are just throwing in crap Metcons all the time, who are basically just detracting from their training quality every single day. It's one of the biggest problems.
I think junk volume too can just be like adding in an enormous amount of cyclical cardio as well, which I think comes more from what I've seen over the years is people doing it for body composition sometimes.
You think body comp? I think people are doing it from a neurotic perspective. I think what happens is they look around and they see people like Travis who do train with a high volume and they're like, oh man, I have to keep up with what these guys are doing, when in reality, like they just don't have the training age or the training background to be able to handle that.
Yeah, Trav, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a real question here.
Okay.
What's the difference between you doing a lot of training volume and somebody doing junk volume?
Me doing a lot of volume.
Because you do a lot of training volume.
Yeah.
And so there's like a fine balance of like doing a lot of work and then just doing a lot of shitty junk work that's not actually making you better. Give me a characteristic of like, what's the difference for you?
For me, I think it's the amount of volume we've done leading up to where I am now and what everybody sees. I mean, no one saw the 4 hours of mobility I was doing a day at night, sitting in front of a TV, just boring, the not fun stuff that you would always write that I would hate you for, but now I appreciate you for it.
Yeah. Now you love me.
Yeah. But back then it was like, why am I doing it? This is the dumbest thing ever. But I was like, okay, this is getting me to where I want to be. This is what I need to do. But no one sees that. Everybody just sees, oh, you do all these hard Metcons, you're beating yourself into the ground. It's like, well, no, this has been years of building up to this point.
Well, not only that, there's phases for you, Travis, right?
Yeah.
Like there are times where you're building up a ton of training volume leading into the CrossFit Games or old regionals or a sanctional prep, but that's not all the time.
Or COVID-19 hitting for the first time. You got 2 or 3 weeks where you did one workout.
Yes.
Total.
And then I did PR though, my clean,
All your
my snatch, and it was amazing. And I was like, oh, can't we do this all the time? And then I realized, no, you can't, because then the Metcons are
Have a
horrible.
global pandemic all
Yeah. Please, once enough.
I mean, right now we're still in it.
Yeah.
So this is social distancing happening right here. But I think overall it's just been building up to where it is and what everybody sees versus everybody's perception, even in general members and population. They just want to do everything and they'll finish a class workout and then they'll do this and then they'll do this and then they'll do this. And I'm like, well, why didn't you go hard in the workout? They're like, I did. And I'm like, well, you could have gone harder, because then you have this much extra energy that you could have put into the workout that you saved. So you could have done 2 hours of handstand holds and kicking up onto the wall and kipping handstand push-ups and handstand walking and double unders. I'm like, well, modify the workouts to where you get a better workout. And then you don't have the energy to go after it and do anything else prior or plan out your training to do that. But even like just what we just did was the throwdown workout. I finished Jackie and I wanted to do nothing else for the next 40 minutes until reverse Jackie. Sorry. Until somebody was like, let's go snatch. And I was like, okay, well, fine.
And for you, snatches are never junk volume, because let's face it, out of all of the barbell movements in the entire sport, the snatch is the one that you need to spend the most time on. That was actually one of the things I wanted to
What are you trying to say?
That you need to work on your snatch, Travis. Simply that you need to work on your snatch. One of the things I wanted to point out is that I think the difference between junk volume and like
appropriate
productive volume is that like if you walk in the gym any given day of the week, you're likely to see Travis working on snatches at some point throughout the day.
Yeah,
and
that's Max's fault.
He does a ton of work, but all the work is directed at something. It has a purpose versus, the guy who sucks at strict handstand push-ups, who's constantly doing double unders and wall ball. Like there's a disconnect between the things that you need to get better and what you're constantly doing. And that to me is the definition of junk volume.
I think it's a lot about the intention of the work that you're putting in at any given period of time. So if we take Travis's snatch example, some days of the week, he might be coming in and he might be doing technical work at lower percentages where the goal of the session is to make everything and build confidence. Some days he might be doing like 10 for time at 225 rest, 5 for time at 245 rest and doing strength capacity work. Sometimes he might be doing heavy overhead squats and strength. And he's actually on some sort of a progressive structure that is aimed at getting him better at snatch. What I see oftentimes is somebody's like, I need to get better at snatch. Let's put snatch in a Metcon, or I need to get better at snatch. Like, let's build up to a 1RM. Let's do a gauntlet. Let's do this gauntlet from 2012. And there's no cohesive structure to why they're doing that. Or maybe even a bigger problem is you're trying to get better at your snatch, and what getting better at your snatch means for this specific example is putting 30 pounds on it because you're too far away from the competitive, like the target that you set for yourself. Doing a bunch of volume is not going to make you stronger. Like Travis just said, he took 3 weeks off, came back, and he's super strong. That's generally one of the things that you want to do. Powerlifters train like 3 or 4 times a week on single sessions that take anywhere from like 60 minutes to 2 hours. And like, that's their total workload in the week, other than maybe stretching, mobility, food, and all the outside stuff that they do, but general training. So junk volume, I think, is more of a concept that you're adding extra work that's not actually making you better. You're just doing work for the sake of doing work, or for the sake of hanging out with your friends more, or for the sake of building camaraderie, as opposed to being like, hey, I'm going to step into the gym and be productive with the shit that I'm doing so that I'm actually getting better.
Well, I think part of the problem there
I
is
think there's no purpose.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just doing it to do it. Even on Saturdays, I feel like half the members will hang out and just do stuff because they want to hang out with each other. And then it's like, what? You've been going for 3 hours straight. What are you doing? I was like, this is the longest session ever.
They're building their ability to operate for 3 hours for 21.1 when it comes out. Cause it's going to be a 3 hour long Metcon.
It's going to be the marathon row.
I'm quitting. I'm definitely quitting CrossFit if 21.1 is the 3 hour AMRAP.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine.
I think one of the problems that a lot of people have is that, there's so many components of the sport. They get lost in the idea that like, they need to really narrow it down to a small handful of things and progress that. So instead they just, they look at like, oh man, this flip through Instagram, this Metcon looked awesome. I'm going to go do this with my friends. That is like, if your goal in CrossFit is just to train and be happy and whatever, that's perfect. But if you come out and say, my goal is to be a sanctional athlete, my goal is to be a regional athlete, or I want to improve my performance in the CrossFit Open, then as soon as you say that, then there now becomes productive and non-productive training volume.
Yeah. Junk volume, really, if your goal is just to like exercise and have fun, then as long as you're doing that, there really is no such thing as junk volume. This is really more of if you have a goal, then it can be very counterproductive to just add training for no specific reason. Or like Travis pointed out, jump into a threshold of volume that you haven't built years and years of capacity. And I mean, he's an impressive dude. I don't like to admit it, but just in terms of his capacity to handle training volume, like there's a reason why he's a world-class athlete. But even at that world-class athlete volume, he's built a preparatory amount of work to get to the point that he can handle that. If you go back and look at his training cycles of what he did in 2012 or 2013, there's still a lot of training in there, but the density and the intensity and the volume of intense, heavy work is way lower because he evolved as the sport was evolving and he got to that point. Now people are getting into it and they're like, oh man, Travis or, Noah, Frazier, Tia, whoever it is that they're looking up to, they see like, oh, here's my training day, and you match it. And it's like, whoa. Like you maybe got your first 30 minutes of training in was intense enough that you're getting a response, and the rest of it, you're just basically surviving. And you do that for a period of time and you're not.
But I also think a lot of people start out like that. Like what I feel like when I first started CrossFit, it was like, can I do as much as I possibly can because that's what everybody started out doing, or what you saw on main site. Everybody's like, do as much as you can. They're doing so much. This is how they got there. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do that. But I think now the sport has definitely changed to where you actually have to have structure. If you're trying to compete and want to be competitive, you need to have structure. You need to have a coach. I mean, even the first time I got into CrossFit, I had a coach that was kind of like guiding me in some way, and then met Nate Schrader, and then he introduced me to Max, and then I've just kind of been with Max for 10 years now. So then I've had someone at least smart enough to help me along the entire way, where someone else is just hops in, or they jump from coach to coach because they're not getting to do the fun stuff. And I remember people even be like, well, yeah, well, why is Max making me do all this? I'm like, well, that's what you need to be doing. It's not fun. It's not exciting. But if you're wanting to be at the top, that's what you need to do. And you need to have a structure and plan around that versus, oh, I'm going to do Mayhems, then I'm gonna do Invictus, then I'm gonna do the design, then I'm gonna do the class workout, and then to finish it off, I'm gonna do midline.
So Travis, when you first started, do you really think that, like you said, you did a lot when you first started, but if you compare that to, say, a games prep cycle, 2016 games prep cycle or something like that, do you think that the training volume from 2016 was not higher than 2012, 2011 when you first started?
Well, in 2016, I wrote my own training for
that's
the
why
last.
I was referencing that.
For like, what was that? 3 weeks. 3 weeks leading up.
That was a lot of Metcons.
Yeah. So Ann Haynes was here, and then I remember helping prep for that. He is the only survivalist that has made it out of Games Camp without being broken to some degree. That was more just like a mental thing of Max being like, look, just write your own thing, do your own stuff. And that was probably not the smartest thing to do training wise.
Hey man, you did pretty well.
But but then after that, I needed to fix some things. But I think I buried myself into the ground because I was just like, I need to do this. I want to do this. I need to do more volume. And ultimately at the end, I was fatigued going into the games and not as fresh, and didn't taper as well, where usually I just look at my program and he tells me what to do, and then it's built in. So it's easier. But back to 2012, I mean, I broke my L5. So from that point, I wasn't training. But in 2013, the training volume and the games has just evolved so much that it's not nearly what it used to be. And now the weights are heavier, the structure, the events, the swimming, the bike, like everything's way different now that it changes everything.
I think it's something to consider. It becomes more and more of a problem as the sport is evolved. So in the same thing, I think transpired in endurance sports is like the volume of work you were putting in when Ironman first came out as a sport was the thing, because if you needed to go for that period of time, nobody had ever done it before. You do more of it, you're going to gain a lot more skill work, and you're going to get better and better and better than the field. That same thing I think was true in 2012, 2013. The sport was very new. Like as an example, we just did reverse Jackie. The scores might be a tiny bit different. I'm not really entirely sure, but like at regionals, Mike won and he was around 512 and he got 512 again. Now Travis did it today and Jake did it today and they were 453.
Oh man.
So
I'm pretty sure I was 0.1. He was 0.2.
The intensity of the workouts is so much higher. You're going so much faster. What was your 1 rep max snatch in 2012? When we first started, it was like 225 or 215.
Yeah.
Now he's got to be able to do 10 at 225, 8 at 245, or 10 at 185, 10 at 185.
You're talking about this. You're talking about
185. Yeah, 185, 205, 45, 65.
Yeah. So now there's Metcons that have that weight threshold in there. When you're starting to compound that on your system and just be like, oh, I'm going to do more. I'm going to do more. You're also talking about more intensity, more loading, more stressful workouts. So the volume that you were doing before is not the same as the volume that's happening right now. So people are just adding so much extra work that I think it's beating them up at every level of their system, neural, hormonal, emotional, like it's almost taking the joy away from the game.
Well, that's one of the biggest dangers of junk volume is the fact that it's just overloading joints and there's almost no thought process behind how you're going to attack the volume that it just like can overload elbows, knees, hips, back, all the stuff.
Yeah. I also think they skip out a lot on like the intensity aspect. So a lot of, they think more volume is going to make them better, which in the end doesn't at all. It's just cool because you're in the gym for 12 hours a day. And
it might have for a short period of time, right?
Yeah. Short. Yeah. But then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I did Jackie in 8 minutes and then versus doing it in 6 minutes, like the amount of difference of that. And then just taking that to every single session. If I'm just half-assing it for every single thing, then I mean, you're not getting anything out of that besides just going through the motion.
So
I mean,
what you're saying is
we've done that.
Yeah.
And
one Jackie at 4:53 trumps 3 Jackies at 8 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think something, especially with regards to Travis, and that he could probably speak to, is a training cycle getting ready for the open or for an online qualifier, which is, I mean, 95% of the competitive athletes in the sport, like that has to be your major focus. I mean, it's the way to get to the games. It's the way to get to sanctionals. A lot of people like the in-person stuff better, but there's a barrier to entry to get there. Those tests are relatively low volume. You get one test over the course of a 4-day period that you repeat for 5 weeks in the open. So
they
you
hurt so bad.
Yeah, they're awful. Or in an online qualifier, you might get like 3 or 4 that you have to do over the course of a week, or like the total volume is nothing like the games where he has to do potentially 15 to 20 workouts over somewhere between 3 and 5 days. So when he goes through those training cycles, the overall level of volume goes up. Most likely, if we measured it and we put retests in there, the intensity of each individual Metcon starts to drop because he gets tired. Like the biggest difficulty is trying to figure out, how do I add volume and keep his strength levels up? How do I add volume and keep his joints from breaking down? So it's a constant balance where he's doing that for maybe like 3 to 5
This has
weeks.
been 6 months.
Yeah. 3 to 5 weeks before any big competition, he's doing that. And there are people that are trying to get to that level that are doing it year round. And I think that's what junk volume really means. It's like a headspace of just being compulsive with trying to get better at a rate that's unsustainable.
I think that what you just touched on, the fact that there are people out there, there are lots of people out there. This is, in all honesty, the most common problem that I run into as a coach with new athletes is just this neurotic obsession with more volume. But that's one of the biggest issues that exists. They're trying to take what they see someone like Travis or someone like Fraser or someone like Froning, they would try and take what they see them doing in their preparation phases and when they're ramping up for competition and do that all year long, convinced that that's the thing that's going to make it so that they can take the next step in their career, when in reality, that's the thing that's going to make it so that they're going to get hurt and have to stop.
Yeah. I see it in the design as well. So we write 3 training paths. Our goal is to write those paths that they're independently followed. Like you're either following the CrossFit path because you want to get better at well-rounded CrossFit, the strength because you're trying to get better at strong, like being strong, or the engine because you're trying to be better at cyclical stuff.
I tried to get better at strong.
I am
Broke his train of thought, man.
No, but there'll be people that are following all 3 training paths, and I'm
so
like,
smart.
So we have to comment on it and be like, hey, based on your strength levels, that doesn't make any sense. You probably should back off here. We built the templates to educate people on how to combine them and reduce the volume. So we're constantly battling this, and we're constantly trying to help people do that. If you get somebody who's like cream of the crop genetic, cream of the crop headspace, he probably could have done junk volume and been pretty damn good for a long period of time. Like,
Sure.
I think that any value that we provided with our relationship is been putting, because he's got a compulsion to work. Like if he's not training, he's building shit at his house, or he's working on something, like he's making 4 kids. He's just like, he's got a lot of energy. He's going to do something with it.
No, 3. I have 3 kids.
3 kids.
He wasn't supposed to.
The process of calming that down and making sure it's productive is an important process to try to make sure somebody can do something for a long period of time. Otherwise, you're just going to get beat up.
Travis, do you have trouble sleeping at night when you don't train with a lot of volume?
No.
He has trouble shutting his mouth when he's not training.
I sleep pretty well.
I know when I've seen you here and you're tapering for a competition like the last,
fired up,
dude, you just bounce all over the place.
I don't stop talking.
You're not the only person I've seen like that. When people, when higher level athletes get rested, they like have a tendency to just start bouncing off the walls and like, I don't know, just continue mess around all the time.
Yeah. I think it's just, you're used to being inside the gym doing stuff all day long. And then when you're only doing a session that's 45 minutes and then a 2-hour break and then another 45 minutes, you have a lot of energy that's built up and ready. And then Max usually is like, just contain it, keep it contained.
Have your thoughts on volume changed with kids and responsibility and
on volume?
Or even with experience? Like, do you think you need as much now to be prepared for a comp?
Yeah, if not more.
You need more now?
Max,
No,
Mike.
but I mean, in regards to the way I approach it, I feel like I've been doing more because I feel like I know what needs to be done at the games level. So then even like we've talked about, like where I do extra stuff at home or extra like movement work or extra skills that I want to develop, that without adding it in as a session, it's just prior or before. It'll be like muscle ups, GHDs, handstand push-ups. I do those every day.
More skill work.
Yeah.
But
it's
in your
not
off seasons, you're
I'm not doing that.
volume now.
Yeah. Not a chance.
Yeah. So it's kind of
more about
your
building projects at home and
yeah.
doing
So you
stuff outside the gym.
you do more specific volume targeted towards competition prep, but way less overall volume if you're just chilling.
Yes.
I wonder if that's probably true. Like when you were working with swimmers and stuff like that, is that true? Like if they're taking off seasons, are they just doing a lot less than they were doing when they were like in college or before in their developmental phases?
A lot of them in the off season train in other modalities to go play basketball. They're getting the weight room and prioritize those things more than they do during the actual training season. Because when they taper, I mean, they might even be out of the gym for 2 or 3 weeks during their taper, and then they have like a week off, and then they start to get antsy, just like CrossFitters do when they're tapering. So yeah, they try and get back into different
Chris has a
places.
question, but before we get to that question, Travis did play another sport a couple of days ago. He played golf and got his ass whooped.
Oh, see,
No.
this is,
Really
I'm
bad.
just going to take the headphones off and walk out.
No.
Hold on, what's Chris's question? We don't
Oh
want-
yeah. Let's just move on past that.
You want to
Since-
defend yourself?
Defend yourself.
Yeah. So no offense, Mitch. They apparently recruited me somebody that hit the ball off the tee 12 feet in front of him, and then Max and him, like, he's been playing 5 days a week. I've never played with him. So I have recruited a member, and we are going to go back out and play again, and we'll see if he'll be saying that again.
Hey,
Mitch.
post in the comments if you want me to film it.
All right,
Yes.
Mitch, I know that you're a
better golfer.
than you showed. Don't let Travis hold you down.
You're
My question
I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
here is, what are some of the most common examples you see, in your passion classes from people you've coached over the years? What are the most common examples of like people adding stuff? Like what's the
Yeah.
things
What
people
are the
do?
most common examples of people adding junk volume, whether it be in classes or individual athletes we worked with?
Number one, adding running volume all the time. I think that's probably the most common thing that I see people just
that is none of my
going out for a
members.
run. No, so that's going to be different, right? So I work primarily with like sanctional level athletes, and so they'll either add burpees or they're going to add running. One of those two things.
What and how do they add it? Just by doing it?
Yeah, I just went for a 3-mile run after the workout today.
Yeah. There's some
Felt
too.
good.
There's
Yeah, felt good.
Yeah.
that's the feedback.
yeah. There's some danger to that as well in terms of like in order to get better at running for the sport, you have to be doing it at the paces required for the sport for some portion of it. So if you're going out on
Absolutely.
like little basic jogs,
Oh, basic jump.
you might have
There's people out there doing basic jogs.
Look at that basic jogging. That it's not going to
gotta put an
prep you
ass
for the
out.
sport.
Yeah. Versus doing
Look at
games
that
level
basic
pace.
jogging ass.
There you go.
Well, think about it like this, right? If you're going to add extra cardio volume, if your goal is to do long, slow distance, would you choose the thing that has the highest impact on your ankles, knees, and hips, running, or would you choose something that has a much lower impact, like the assault bike, the Concept 2 bike, the rower, the skier?
I would do
Swimming.
weighted runs.
Weighted runs, yes. Weighted runs with a sled, right? Yeah.
Weighted
Like
runs.
the person who
Yeah.
would do that
Yeah.
do
Would be.
But I mean, I think
Yeah.
I think it was even at the games. What year was that when we did the swim run? What was that? 17?
Yeah, first year in Madison, right?
17 or 18?
No, Travis was on the D team.
Oh yeah, I was on the
Yeah.
demo team.
Yeah.
But I remember we started out, Max said, don't lead, was his advice.
Hold on, that's
So-
happened twice.
Okay. And usually, so me and Max's relationship, I don't do well with plans.
No strategy.
I don't like it. It doesn't work well for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes he gives good advice, and his advice for this was don't lead.
Yeah.
So I started in second and just stayed there, which was a really bad
Get
idea.
outta
But I
here.
remember we
You
all
passed, you,
No,
it
I
was
didn't.
Ricky. It was Ricky, wasn't it?
It was.
It actually really was Ricky.
Chris's favorite
and then
athlete.
it was just bad.
They
it
were
was a bad
running
idea. And we were running
15
like
miles.
Yeah, we started out way too hot.
Well, he had gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't. And then it came back to bite me once we got in the water.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that's
but
the
I think
thing happened
that's
in Murph.
Yeah, well, it's even like preparation for that. It's not very often I'm running 5-15 miles unless it's a max effort. This is the pace you were desired to run.
I know what you did wrong. You didn't do enough easy runs, Travis.
Yeah,
It's clearly the
maybe would have felt better.
To get back to Chris's question, I think other things people add are high skill metcons. Just they want to do handstand walk, squat snatch, triple unders, muscle up. Like they're trying to do very high skill, which in some ways I understand that, because those types of workouts for me are way more fun because you can't really go that fast. Like the skill itself limits your ability.
You're saying you like to go slow in workouts.
Yes, I do. I am the opposite of an elite CrossFitter. Although I'm going to age up into the masters and then maybe I can have a competition with
Max
Trav,
gets to join me this coming year.
Your weight's still the same.
Yeah, true. The damn it. The stress that people put on their system just doesn't really match what they need to get better at. You need to get better at the open. Those high level skills, like you need them. You need to be good at like handstand walking, and you need to be good at muscle ups. But doing them in a format that you can't really go fast and you can't like breathe hard, or you're just putting so much weight on the bar that you're resting a minute between reps as you're doing a Metcon just doesn't really make sense. So I feel like people are constructing Metcons in a way that they can add volume because they are inherently slower and taking away the intensity required that a lot of people need.
Those are the people that are like good at sanctional style events, because that's actually how a lot of those events are structured. Heavy snatches, handstands over the ramp, muscle ups, like more challenging, higher skill stuff. But like you said earlier, like to get there, you actually have to be able to breathe in a Metcon.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to throw to Travis because Chris's question was like, what are the most common types of junk volume that you see? What do you see in your classes?
I mean, I think it's more of just the same thing, but lower skills, like toes to bar, like things that people don't necessarily have yet that are really trying to get better at those. So,
but is that junk volume? Because that might actually be appropriate depending on how they're doing it.
Yeah, but when it's an hour long of just the same movements, it's not.
Okay, got it.
That would be junk volume. Like doing handstands and trying over and over with bad positions. I'm like, okay, you're not doing this the right way.
To regress and do some
then go back.
stuff.
That's a good point as well. Junk volume can be like, so say you're someone who doesn't have toes to bar, for example. Junk volume might be getting up and just trying to do toes to bar over and over and over versus working yourself through a basic skill progression to actually develop the skill of swinging on the bar before you try to do toes to bar. Like that's one way to classify jump.
Yeah, like start with kip swings and seated compression work and hanging L work, and then slowly start to build yourself to the point that you're actually doing toes to bar with good technique, then build volume.
Well, I think,
but no one wants to do that. They just want to hop up there and keep kipping and kipping and kipping. And
they might not even know that that's a thing that they could do. And that's another problem as well, is like people throwing in junk volume just because they literally they're ignorant of the fact that there are things that you can do to actually help you learn to do your first toes to bar, your first muscle up, other than grab the rings and just try and catapult yourself over top of the rings.
Yeah, same with bar muscle up too. Yeah. I feel like you always see people chicken elbow and say, okay, stop, like retrain that, get your pull up better. But then they just keep trying. And I'm like, you're going to hurt your shoulder. It's going to happen.
There are some people that get to the point that they're pretty damn good and they'll do like 20 unbroken like that. And it's like, all right,
not efficient.
Yeah. You just adding so much volume to a pattern that's going to hurt you. To circle back to Chris's question, younger athletes I've seen add a ton of extra strength work because you want to get stronger. So you're like, oh, if I do the barbell heavy more often, I'll get stronger faster, which generally is the opposite. Generally, like there might be a couple people who are generally super fast responders to strength work. If you're like doing a squatting every day program or something like that and you're young, you might get fast, but it's also a really easy way to like end up with sore, crippled knees, hips, and lower back.
True.
Yes.
I think along those lines of like, if you look at, so West Side, for example, likely you're squatting twice a week with
two lower body days, one as more of a speed based day.
And if you're looking at it as like a volume prescription, the volume itself is pretty low. Now the volume load for that is, you know, structured to be incredibly high, but like that's just 2 squat sessions per week. And that can get people incredibly strong because it targets certain aspects of strength. And so those young athletes might be better going through an assessment and actually figuring out what types of strength work they need to work on the most. And then, what's that? Oh yeah. And that too. Resting.
I wish people could have seen Chris's facial expression. Like, yeah,
Duh. Interesting. Well, I mean, I feel like it was the same way when we did Hatch leading up. What was it? Before COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I felt so strong, but we squatted twice a week. It was like a Monday, Friday kind of thing. And then in between that, you're snatching and clean and jerks, whatever. But
yeah, but your total volume of the snatches and clean and jerks were pretty low during that cycle.
yeah. But then it's like, I felt so good with that amount of back squatting. Then I was like, let's keep doing it. Let's keep doing it. And then now I'm like, okay, I probably should have stopped, because then we stopped, and then I just tried to keep that volume going, and then it didn't work out well.
So basically, we brought Travis on the podcast to be an example of junk volume.
Hey, I'll admit, it happens. I just recover a little faster and can keep going.
It happens to all of us, I think. This is not like a judgmental thing that none of us have been subject to wanting to do more and wanting to progress faster. It's a mindset that is probably a marker of a good trait. You're an A-type person that wants to get better faster, that wants to move faster than you're able to move, that wants to do more than you're capable of doing. That's a good thing. But oftentimes having a good thing, the application of what you're doing with that good quality is leading you down a path that you're actually getting worse at the thing you want to get better at. So it's more like, hey, take that energy, take that creativity, take that desire and ambition to get better and move forward and do more, and do it in a way that's actually going to move you towards your target, as opposed to move you away from your target, which you don't really recognize when you're in the moment. When you're doing too much, you think, oh, I'm handling this, I'm getting better, this feels really good. And then 6 weeks down the road, you're like, I don't even want to look at a barbell. I don't want to walk into a gym. It sucks. I'm hungry all the time. I'm tired. I have no energy. It's like, well, the behaviors you developed for the last 6 weeks are probably leading to that.
What are the types of things that people can be doing? What types of volumes are productive for people to add, blanket statement?
Trav, man, just
and follow the design and don't follow all three paths.
Yeah,
Follow the
Yeah. I think the process of taking an appropriate amount of volume is about figuring out what your goals are, what your athletic levels are, what you need to work on to make that happen, and then constructing a plan that fits your schedule, your age, and your training background. So you can do that on your own. You can sit down and try to go through that process. I think that's really difficult. So generally, I'd recommend getting a coach or having some sort of coaching guidance right up front in your process. And that could be even somebody that's at your gym that's been at a regional or games level or been around those types of people that can just tell you like, hey, this might be a little bit too much, or slow down, start here, focus on this. This movement needs some work. Get some clarity as to what you need to work on. And then make sure that volume is matching whatever you're preparing for. If you're preparing for the open, there is going to be a lot of double unders and a lot of burpees and a lot of toes to bar, and a lot of those gymnastic skills need to be built into your program. But how you do it and how you construct it is very important. It's different to do 4-time 150 toes to bar, 500 double unders, and 100 burpee box jumps in a row. Like just as a Metcon, to be survival and post it up and be like, hey, I survived this. It's like, all right, well, what are the speed of those reps? Does it actually transfer to what you're preparing for?
2 hours to do.
Yeah.
Where your burpee box jump over is done at 16 reps a minute, which is what's required to be competitive in the open.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of a cop out of an answer, but I think get some guidance, get a coach, go through a consult. It doesn't even need to be hiring a full-time coach. Just get somebody to, or do the design, which we try to do that and we try to moderate it. I'm actually creating a new template that's a lowered volume template, because I was like, all right, well, we're building this program that definitely has a relatively fair amount of volume that can prepare an elite athlete. But there are people in here that don't need this much or aren't responding to this much.
Well, not only that, but the open has potentially been moved, way back. So that volume was probably appropriate if the open was going to be in October, but since it may not be,
it's going to be 2022.
The 2021 open will be in 2022.
All right, whatever. I got a lot of time to prep then. I'll add some junk volume to my training.
Well, one of the things, and I think this is important to touch on as well, is like, if you're someone who is an elite athlete who's in their off season, but you have this neurotic compulsion to continue to add training volume, one of the best ways to do it is like what Travis said, add movement work.
Yeah.
Add, stretching, add mobility work, add targeted movement work to improve your hip internal rotation, so that when you do go back into your squat cycle, like you're moving better than you were before.
People get a little bit on me for being too complicated with my answers about what movement work is. So why don't you explain to these fine audience members what a movement session for
Travis
you
just
looks
got really nervous.
Yeah, he's like, no, I'm going to be on the spot.
No, I don't care. I mean, we've been doing it for so long, but I think it varies depending
Just
on what you need to work on.
Like one day, you're at home, you finish a whole training day, you got 30 minutes.
So if I have 30 minutes at home, I will start off with some sort of just static stretching hold for X amount of time. So say 2 or 3 minutes in the position, both sides. So then say couch stretch or pigeon stretch, something just to start with getting my hips open. And then after that, I will lead into some sort of hold, whether that's like hamstring holds, whatever we're doing, glute bridge holds, just something you can do while you're sitting there. Into like, into then usually lacrosse ball, mobility ball, something on my hips or knees, whatever it may be, VMO that's tight or stiff that needs to be opened up and then feeling better for the next day or what I know is about to come forward to me. But I feel like that's kind of like simple, easy stuff to do. Cause even to like my general population, I'm like, all right, well, have you worked on this? No. How long has it been bothering you? 2 weeks? Have you told anybody? No, I just thought it would go away. Okay. Well, here's a plan to kind of do it. Do you sit down and watch TV at night? Yeah. Okay. So why don't you just grab a lacrosse ball or grab something to sit down and at least be productive with it? But I think a lot of people, they want to be productive in the gym, but not outside the gym. And then they want to get better in the gym, but they're not doing the things outside of the gym.
Yeah, preach it to the ground.
But I think it's the same thing, even with nutrition, everything else that they're trying to accomplish. You need to do it outside the gym just as much as you're doing inside the gym. So if you're adding junk volume and doing all this other stuff, you can't go out of the gym and eat junk food and then expect to keep getting better inside the Metcons. Yeah. Like it just doesn't happen.
Kelly Starrett, it really impacted me. I don't remember his exact quote, but the general concept is that most people should develop the ability to take care of their bodies on their own.
Not some sort of self-care routine.
They shouldn't always need a PT or a massage therapist or somebody. Now, having regular work on your body, or if you have an acute issue, yes. But I think for most people, if you dedicated 30 to 60 minutes a day of that low intensity movement work outside of the gym. And it could look different. Like some days he might be doing what he just explained, which is a combination of like stretching, isometrics, and just general massage on himself. Or he might be working on his squat positions for 30 or 20 minutes. So that way, when he comes in the next day, his warm up can be a little bit quicker and he can get, 5 to 10% heavier in his lifts without his knees being creaky and achy and painful. And I think people can do stuff like that, which would be a very good addition of volume. That's not really like the sexy CrossFit intense style stuff, but allows you to do more of that and not have it be junk volume. Cause it's almost like Paul Chek's concept of working out versus working in and like taking care of your body and your mind in a way that's productive and healthy.
Or then you can just keep adding more junk volume with your movement work you've been doing nice. You can do more the next day.
Take better care of yourself so you can add more junk volume the next day. It makes total sense.
Yes, that's a really good conclusion, I think, to our podcast of why you shouldn't do junk volume.
Eat more vegetables for more ice cream.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I feel like that's a parenting concept that I use all the time.
Yeah.
Eat your broccoli and you can have ice cream.
Yeah, you can have your treat when you're done if you get that. But I don't want it.
Do you do that with yourself?
But I eat vegetables.
Yeah.
And I enjoy vegetables. So I feel like I did early.
Ooh, we got another question. There's another question in the crowd, everybody.
What is your favorite all-time vegetable?
What is your favorite all-time vegetable, Travis Mayer?
I like grilled asparagus.
Oh, get off this podcast.
Or Brussels sprouts. You put it on.
You're uninvited.
You put it on the grill. I don't know. I just always, or broccoli. I feel like we usually do a combination of asparagus, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts, and we'll put them all on the grill. And okay, broccoli's probably the number one then, now that I'm thinking about it.
You can stay. You can stay.
Your pee smells so bad after asparagus.
Yeah. You were talking about movement. Why don't you plug your stupid little movement course?
My stupid little movement course. In the Training Think Tank classroom, I put the movement course up there. It goes through all of those movement exercises. And then also free on YouTube, we have movement playlists called Movement Archives that walk through
Stupid
loaded
movements.
stretch. Yeah, stupid movement work, isometrics, loaded stretching, positional breathing, a bunch of stuff that you can learn about how to do that for yourself.
That's not the fun stuff.
But
But
it's definitely
it
not
helps.
the fun stuff. It's definitely, I wouldn't consider it junk volume. I would consider it, though, a necessity to take care of your body long term. I mean, if you don't do it proactively for yourself, at some point, you're probably going to need some sort of medical supervision to do that for you in the future because you'll get tight and stiff. And
Cut me open.
yeah. So I would I would highly advise taking advantage of those resources.
Thanks to Max, you have no excuse not to do your movement work.
Yep.
No.
All right.
I used to skip out.
Trav, you need more followers, so where could they find you?
The Travis Mayer changed it from years ago. I never really knew why I had 18.
On Instagram, he is at the Travis Mayer. Where else can they find you? Should we give your home address so your fans can
Let's
come
not
see
do that.
you?
CrossFit Passion.
Yeah. No.
United.
United Performance,
Oh,
man.
that's
We
right.
changed the
Sorry,
name.
I forgot.
Come on.
Look
bro.
at that sexy shirt. I like those colors. Now you need a better model though.
Yeah, it's not good. I need to work out more. I need to do more junk volume.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Trav, thanks. It's always a pleasure.
I did it. We did it. Good job, ladies and gentlemen. I'm still going to keep.
Trav, give us an intro.
Okay. What am I supposed to do? Just.
Do the same thing you just did. All right, Trav, 3, 2, 1, give us an intro.
Well, man, I need the.